It's a growing concern in Oklahoma and across the country. Chinese interests purchasing huge parcels of American farmland to be used for, well, that's a good question, and one that leads Oklahoma leaders on the state and federal level to describe this foreign land grab as a national security issue that must be addressed. Jason Doyle joins us now with more on what's being done. Jason.
Rich, work is underway in Congress to include the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture into the process to make sure if a foreign investor is buying up farmland, it doesn't work against American and Oklahoma interests. Oklahoma is known for the winds sweeping down the plain, but lately more and more of those plains are owned and operated by foreign entities.
That puts the pressure on. If the market value goes up instead of going up by a more normal 3% or 5% or 7%, if it goes up by 50% or 70%, that which happened in some cases in some towns in Oklahoma with this during the cannabis land rush, which has calmed down a lot now.
Rod Mosel is the president of the Oklahoma Farm Bureau and says members have raised concerns about the increased number of foreign-owned farms.
We certainly hear about this from our members, and it's an issue of some concern. It's a very complicated issue. So the further you get into it, it gets very hard. It gets harder and harder to figure out exact solutions.
Those solutions will likely have to come from Washington, D.C. Congressman Frank Lucas has been working on the issue to ensure that if a foreign entity buys ag land, it does not run counter to American interests.
Basically modifying an entity called CFIUS, which was set up in the 1970s to say that the Secretary of Ag should be on that board, because CFIUS has to approve the purchases of all major assets in the United States that reflect the security of the country. And I argue our ability to raise our own food is just as important as bombs and missiles and computer chips.
Lucas's bill is called the Agriculture Security Risk Act. He feels that making sure we know who owns ag land is a national security issue.
Literally, foreign investment in agricultural land in the United States continues to increase year after year. Oklahoma has consistently been ranked one of the top states where they're buying this property.
U.S. Senator James Lankford holds the same opinion and is working on similar legislation in the Senate.
All right. Senator Lankford, you are proposing a bill called the Soil Act. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, Soil Act is not just a response to what's happening in Oklahoma, because we're talking so much about foreign ownership of land in Oklahoma due to our marijuana laws. But this is really a response to what's happening nationally.
During the previous legislative session, State Senator Warren Hamilton introduced a bill to restrict foreign land purchases in Oklahoma, but it wasn't heard. At the time he introduced the bill, he said, quote, "While Oklahoma law already prevents foreign land ownership, it doesn't prevent these folks from creating businesses to purchase property. Senate Bill 1469 will put an end to this workaround of current state statute." Lankford and others point to Oklahoma's legalization of medical marijuana as the catalyst that led to foreign entities rushing to buy Oklahoma land.
The year after our marijuana laws were actually passed, Oklahoma had more acres purchased by foreign entities than any other state in America.
That spring, March of 2021, a lot of these farms that were purchased suddenly having 20, 30, 40, 100, 120 grow houses, almost popping up overnight, and almost overnight, there's 2-foot-tall plants already in them.
The Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs is investigating alleged criminal enterprises guised as legal medical marijuana grow operations.
And so it's not as simple as saying, here's the guy that owns the property, he's on the lien. That could be a straw owner who is paid to lease his property to a group that's tied to a criminal organization. Rule number one of any criminal group is don't draw attention to yourself. So they were getting marijuana licenses, and they were doing everything right, except 100% of the product we cannot trace to a single legitimate sale. It's all going to the East Coast and now even out west on the black market.
Woodward says these illegal grows are dotted across the state.
Some of these groups we're investigating are tied to anywhere from 40 to 400 farms spread out through all Oklahoma. And the real owners of these farms, the people who are really moving the product, moving the money, moving the workers, are nowhere near Oklahoma.
Another major concern, ag land purchases near military installations, especially if the entity is from China.
We hear rumors from our folks that they purchase land near Tinker and so forth. We've tried to check all those out. I honestly think that's urban legend. We haven't found any that we think are real purchases near any of our defense installations in Oklahoma.
Mosul adds while the Chinese have increased their land purchase activity, it's far from being the top owner of land in the U.S.
Actually, the biggest foreign-owned lander nationally is Canada. Then they're followed by Italy and Germany and Netherlands is, I think, number 2, and Great Britain or England is. So the top 5 are all what we consider really good friends. But there's a lot of tension with us in China right now. China is way down the list on foreign ownership, but they've certainly been growing faster than most everybody else.
He supports the work of Lucas and Langford on the issue.
This is much larger than Oklahoma. This is really a national issue. Next to military bases, next to infrastructure, we should ask the very basic questions. Do I have a national security risk of foreign entities owning large amounts of American land?
We do think that the ag interest ought to be added to that defense committee so that they can take a look at when there's purchases that might affect the defense of the United States, because safety and security and protecting our national interest is first and foremost, and we think crop production and agricultural production is an important part of that.
Mosul hopes that the pendulum doesn't swing too far on this issue simply because it could interfere with Americans' investments abroad.
Business interest in other countries, and so we don't necessarily want to go all protectionist, because if we say you can't have any foreign ownership, that could backtrack to affecting a lot of American interest in other countries.
Interestingly enough, Oklahoma ranks only behind Texas in the amount of ag land owned or leased by foreign entities.